All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 25th edition of the Fantasia Film Festival. My name is Celia Couzet. I am one of Fantasia's curator. Thank you so much for being with us. And I hope you're enjoying the festival so far. There's still 10 more days of festivals. There are on-demand titles, there are scheduled titles, there are even like a very small handful of in-person screenings. So please go and have a look at our lineup on our website. So if you're watching this right now, it's most probably because you've seen the world premiere of STANLEYVILLE. And I have a few people with me today, and so I'm going to introduce them. First of all, we have the producer, Hayley Brown.
Hello. Can I?
It froze.
There we are.
Is Celia frozen for you guys?
Celia's frozen. That's what happens when you come to Stanleyville.
I'll try to get her back on with you in a second.
Okay. So, Julian.
Hi, Hayley. Hi, Max.
Hey, guys.
Okay. Are you there? No.
Well, maybe we should reenact some magical moments from the film, but I think you guys should
so you
do
want
most
like
of it.
Me yelling, Hayley crying, and then you sweating? Well, let's just take over. I'll just ask some questions.
Okay.
Julian, you're our cast member here tonight. What did how do you like working in Hamilton, Ontario? Is that the first time that you shot a movie in Hamilton? Hamilton versus Berlin, which would you choose?
Hamilton versus Berlin. They were both exceptional places. I've worked in Hamilton a lot. It's the industrial alternate to Toronto at the moment, and there's a lot of film activity there. However, I should add to your question really by saying you created an environment in Hamilton that was appropriate to the film, and it was only in Hamilton that we could establish something like that with the resources that we had. And it was a total experience because of the building we were in, and also the way it had been constructed by you and by production had set it up in such a way that we were with each other, locked in that environment in the summer heat. And I think it actually added to the entire production.
We definitely got some sweat production value for gratis on that. But were you there when the bats were in the on the set?
No, I missed that. I
Okay.
saw a rat, the odd rat running
We had
around
rats.
underneath it. Yeah, but I missed the bats.
Yeah,
but
they only came out at night.
Oh, okay. But you might want to say why you saw the bats, because you had been there previously creating the environment and building it and making it a habitable place out of a shell.
It is true that place, when we got it, Hayley, how long was it before? 6 weeks before we started shooting?
It's that, yeah.
And then me and my brother, the production designer, Elliot, and Hayley, and my mom, and like a bunch of students came and like painted it and cleaned it. And then I was there, I think, honestly, like 7 days a week for 12 hours a day, making it looked like fucking Chernobyl before we finished. And then the paint was still wet, and then we started shooting. But it is true that Hamilton offered us the opportunity to shoot in a place. You couldn't do that in Toronto anymore.
No, and Hamilton gives a bleakness and an industrial landscape that was particularly appropriate, and it felt that it was always just outside the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Max, there's a question for you here in the Q&A. I'm going to read it to you. You can answer. Okay?
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
Can you tell how you came up with the script for this quirky story?
Well, the original idea was Rob, my co-writer. He had the idea because he used to work, or I guess he still kind of does, worked in like Toronto finance district. So there was like an underground mall in Toronto called The Path that is just like really depressing and banal. And I don't know if he saw a woman sitting at a table there alone and thought like, wow, she just looks like there could be so much going on in her life that is not, like deeper than whatever somebody sitting in an underground mall. I think he just thought there was like a really good beginning of a story of somebody in a business suit, like a kind of office drone that was sitting in basically where the movie starts at Stanleyville starts, we have this like mall in Berlin and she's sitting on a massage chair. That was kind of Rob's genesis for the idea of just having somebody like, sitting there. And then we were like, okay, well, what else? How do we make a story? So we need like, knowing that the budget would be probably pretty low. We wanted to keep it in a confined space and have like a limited amount of cast. And then it was sort of like a reverse engineering of the story. Like, what can you do? It's kind of like, who like Evil Dead or something. Like you make, okay, I've got only enough money to make a movie in like a cabin in the woods. So essentially it's a cabin in the woods type thing. Like you got to make it interesting between 6 people in one room. And then we just like mined all of our own interests and came up with a story. You got any more, Hayley? What's going on here?
I have some. I'll ask my personal questions. Julian, why? Why, when you received the script from Max, you're like, okay, I'll do this one. You're a real actor. You make real movies. This was a little guy. What drew you to the script from Max?
Well, first of all, he's not a little guy. He's a well-respected actor. Actually, Max and I go way back. We've been in a few things together, so we know each other as performers. During that time, we've talked a lot, and we have a similar taste in films. And the evolution of Max's career as a writer and a director has sort of been clear to me as we've talked on various film sets. When he talked about the script, I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And I made positive noises and he showed it to me and then realized that there might be one of the parts that would be appropriate for me. And I liked it. And I think why I was drawn to the script, if I'd read it cold without ever having known Max, who he was, I would say that it's not timid. It's a no holds barred.
I'm back.
Hi, Celia. It's not afraid of characters of size. It's clearly written by a guy that understands performance, and he understands the limits of performance and the demands of performance. And it's there is a lot of craft within the structure of the thing, but also the execution. And the choreography of the movement, of the actors, of the intensification of the mood, the cinematography, you name it, the soundscape. So it's a compelling piece. And Max and I have had many conversations too about the categorization of movies, and we're very aware we're 2 performers that get categorized very easily, and we're very aware that this film defies traditional category, though it falls into a genre area, but it appeals to our quirkiness and sort of the openness. Like it is very difficult to pin it down. and we like it for that. I should say I like it for that, but I know it's Max's passion too.
That's very well put. Yeah, like it's a real ensemble movie. Like, I mean, there's still plenty of ensemble movies, but it's like clearly somebody who's an actor wrote like these big performances where it's really hard to say, like, you know, I love and hate all the characters equally. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about that. Julian and I are, you know, we're character actors. Like, it's a movie for character actors. It's great. Like, how often does that come up? I mean, it's sort of a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of an homage to the jobs I never got.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry I disappeared. I had a connection problem.
Did your cat knock over a jar of mayonnaise again? What's going on here?
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm so sorry. Of course, it happens right now. But I'm glad you got the discussion started.
Hayley took over.
Thank you, Hayley. But yeah, I mean, I was going to start maybe by asking you to introduce yourself a little bit, you know, and how you got into filmmaking, you know, to put like a basis on for everyone. You know, maybe who wants to start with that?
Well, let's start with Hayley, because we haven't heard about her and what drew her to the project. Because I was aware, I got to tell you, before that, is that Hayley, as a producer, was so present during this that she was actually part of the crew. Like, I'd never been on a set before where the producer is actually kind of there, because there was no other room. So it was an unusually intimate experience for all of us. So Hayley, how did you handle it?
Necessary.
Yeah, I mean, filmmaking in general, I started in stage management and theater, moved to Toronto, thought film would be more interesting, dynamic. Max, I know Max because I date Max's brother, and I knew him as an actor, as a filmmaker, and I knew an EP on the project who gave it to me first. And I just think it's so expertly well written, was my primary attraction to it from the get. I think we have 6 really developed, fantastic round characters who are completely idiosyncratic and just sort of caricatures of themselves. And I was really excited to see what performers would bring to it. It's also my first feature as a producer, and it's obviously hyper contained, and you know, we were able to do it at the budget level we were able to do it at. So it was a really good first project for all of us. But that's me in Stanleyville, from the words, was my initial interest.
But you also, like, it kind of makes sense that if you were coming from a theater background, and it has a bit of a theater vibe to it, right? Like, it's a,
yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's not a filmed play, but it definitely has that sort of ensemble cast theater vibe to it. And it, you know, that's pretty foreign to a lot of producers, I think, that didn't work in theater.
Totally. I mean, totally. And even the way it was rehearsed and the way that we shot it, I think all of those wides where we sort of establish everybody in one frame feel so theater to me.
Yeah.
How
Julian,
about you, Max?
You?
Or Julian?
Yeah, go ahead, Julian.
What, like a quick hello and who I am and all that stuff? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm an actor. We sort of covered a little bit of it. I'm a character actor. Max and I have crossed paths on several projects. I'm very interested as a Canadian actor for the emerging of a Canadian voice, and a theatrical Canadian voice. And I mean that not just distinguishing between theater and film, but the theatricality of performance. And as an actor that's generally categorized as a character, I like to see possibilities mixed, so that, you know, a 6-person's movie in which everybody's equally important, and the person in the background reacting to the person in the foreground is as important, is fascinating to me. And it's the kind of size and the kind of nuance that I get a lot of satisfaction. And for me, it's very Canadian. I can't describe it, but Canadian films aren't about maple syrup and the CN Tower. or about oh shucks, we're not Americans or Brits, but they are about a particular sensibility, a particular barn building ethos, and an awareness of the people around us. And so the courage to take this and to be assertive with a story like this really appealed to me.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Max, and yeah, I'm so what like obviously I directed the movie and co-wrote the movie, and I you know, as Julian has already mentioned, like I'm an actor as well, and I know that's how I know Julian. We've worked together on, I don't know, 3 things maybe. I don't know. Through the years, we've worked together a few times, and you know, I'm a character actor. I get hired to like, you know, to be the guy who says, "Wait, that building's on fire. Don't go in there." Like, but I kind of got into directing because I wanted to make a little bit of more work for myself, and I wanted to like be a little bit more involved. But being an actor, you know, as Julian can contest to, it's you're at the whim of the projects that are available at the time, and so I was a little bit trying to like, well, fuck it, I'll just like make my own projects. But then this one in particular, I was like, this is not something I can act in because it was just too overwhelming.
I was going to ask you about that actually, because you were acting in your own shorts previously, Ape Sodom and Midnight Confession. So I was like curious, you know, why.
Well, but those were really because that was out of kind of necessity as well. Like, I mean, those shorts are kind of, I think I did a fine job in those shorts, but I did it, I was really paying for those myself. And it was just kind of like, well, if there's one chunk of the production that I can shave off, it would be hiring an actor. So I'll do that myself. But when it came to this movie, it was just too, I know everybody says like, oh, making a movie is so hard. And it's like, it's so much work, but it was really like, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to do. And if I had to, and also the time is so fucking short that if I had to watch playback of if I was playing a character in it, and if I had to stop and watch playback, Hayley, we would have gotten like, you know, a third less than what we got on already shooting 7 pages a day. Yeah. So there was a point, I think, when we talked, Hayley, when it was like, maybe I should play Manny Jump Cannon, because I had played a character called Manny Jump Cannon in a short that the character was based on. But then I was really begging her not to like make me do that and find the money for somebody else. And luckily we got Adam Brown, who's a much better Manny Jump Cannon than I ever could be. So it worked out right, just made it by the skin of our teeth, production, like finance wise. But yeah.
I mean, I think you make both perfect Manny Jump Cannon. But I was going to ask you about that actually, because like, so it feels like, and you're talking about characters, and each characters, they're very detailed, and it feels like they each have their own films. You know, they have the potential of having their own. They come from, you know, as if, you know, there's very detailed background stories already to them, and Manny Jump Cannon has that because he has a short, right? So I was wondering a little bit more about that. Is there more background stories that you wrote, and how did you create them?
Yeah, me and Rob really kind of, I mean, the characters kind of came out of, we made a really conscious decision to make the characters like very sort of starting from like a very archetypal, like almost not a stock character, but like, this is going to be the sort of capitalistic businessman white guy, and this is going to be the like Hispanic bodybuilder, and this is like, we, you know, Manny's like, he was like a kind of rough trade, like wannabe you know, celebrity, but like so far away from it that it's a little bit like they started out as kind of archetypes, or because we wanted to have a movie where there was like archetypes battling each other. Like it wasn't supposed to be subtle in who was in the competition. We were like, this is it, like, but then once you have those characters, then you have to fill in all the gaps. And it turns out that they have like backstories, and it turns out that they actually have real histories, because if you ask me, we're kind of already all archetypes. Like, I don't think there's that much variation between people, but that's not a bad thing. It's just like on the surface, it looks sort of archetypal. And then, you know, you find out more about people and you're like, oh, well, that guy actually lived in Berlin in, you know, 1989. And like, and, you know, we didn't go too deep into it, but it was, yeah, it kind of started out as blunt and got a little bit more refined as we wrote.
Got it. And so I was wondering more specifically about Julian's character, actually, because he feels a little bit different than the others, right? He's different. And also I was wondering about his name, because funny enough, we were talking about in the previous Q&A I was doing about this name, Homunculus, is the name of a demon, correct?
Well, I mean, homunculus, I think there's a lot of sort of derivations of that name, but I mean, my reference for homunculus was from the like Descartes, the Cartesian theater, like before modern science like was able to explain what the inner voice of what was in your head. There was this idea that there was actually a little man in your head that had eyes that saw through your eyes. And then when your inner voice was this man talking, and that man was, I don't think it was Descartes that came up with the concept of homunculus, but that man in your head, which was the inner voice, was named homunculus. I don't know where the name came from. And then from that, it sort of changed to like, it was appropriated. Maybe that was the appropriation. I don't know what the actual genesis of that character is, but that's my reference for it, which comes from the sort of this like very early days of writing this movie. We were kind of really, me and Rob were like talking a lot about like free will and the like what experience is, like not to get too esoteric here, but I'll try and make it brief. The whole idea was that there was a woman who didn't like what she saw in life. Maria did not like what she saw around her. She saw her kid shitty. She saw her husband shitty. She saw her job shitty. She saw some fucking mall. It was depressing. It was all hell. So she kind of just like changed everything she saw, and she built this world, which was like an adventure, which was this contest. It was like, almost the whole thing is false. It's almost like originally the whole movie was just her imagination, but it may still be that. I don't know. Like, so it was about like sort of forcing the world around you to be something that it's not, which was the Cartesian theater. It's like the way the world, you make the world look the way you want it to. And so homunculus was this character that came in, and he was kind of like not really in the real world, and he's not really in the imagined world. And he kind of, that's why he's so busted. That's why he talks in this weird way, and the rules don't really make sense. It's almost like some of the data is getting lost in Maria's projection of the world and the real world. And I'll say this with a grain of salt, that's not really how it ended up. That was kind of how the movie started. But I don't think it really, I don't commit to that now. I don't think it really works in the movie now that she imagined the whole thing, but that's kind of how it started. And that's how the name homunculus came.
Yeah, makes sense. So tell me a bit more about the casting process. How did you find all those people?
How did we, well, Julian, I just asked him and he was kind enough to agree. And then Hayley and I went to Berlin in what year was that? 2019?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we went
February
to
2019.
Is this after you did the short, Max?
It was after the short. Yeah.
Right.
And because and we went and went to the EFM, like the Berlin Film Festival market, and
that's where we met.
Yes, that's right. We met at
the karaoke party, the
karaoke.
karaoke party.
Yeah. And because after shooting a short in Berlin, I had this idea that I wanted to shoot a feature in Berlin. I don't know. I thought Berlin was a cool place to shoot a movie, and so we were kind of going out to actors in Europe, thinking we were going to shoot a movie in Europe, and we had approached Susanna Wust through was it through casting? Yeah, it was through our casting director in Europe, and then so once Susanna agreed to do it, we sort of stacked up this European cast, because half of it was like, oh, these people are really good actors and we should just hire them. And then half of it was, well, we might shoot this movie in Germany, so maybe we should concentrate on casting in Europe. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. That we saw a lot of tapes for a lot of characters, and sometimes there were offers. It was sort of, I mean, my priority in casting was to have like interesting people that were not it's funny, I said archetypal and sort of stock characters, but I didn't want archetypal and stock faces. Like, you know, as Julian and we've established already several times that we're character actors, and I like character actors, and I wanted character actors, and I wanted interesting faces, and I wanted unrecognizable faces. I mean, of course you can recognize them if you know them, but I didn't want to do like a movie where you're like, oh, hey, there's the guy from Murdoch Mysteries, and hey, there's the guy from, you know, Schitt's Creek or whatever. Like, I didn't want to be, I wanted to be a little bit anonymous with the casting. And so we tried to cast varied actors from as far away as possible.
Got it. Were there any characters that you wrote originally that you didn't include? Was that it? Was there? No,
I don't think so. I mean, it was pretty. We shot the script. Like, we pretty much we were pretty pretty loyal to the script. It was pretty, because it's so contained. It was able to write a script that was like, didn't have that many variables. And it's funny when you write a script that, you know, there was things that we did intentionally, like having rounds, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, that was like, me and Rob were like, okay, well, we have to keep the momentum going in this one fucking room. So we added we kind of built things into the script that were sort of foolproof, or, I mean, maybe, who knows, maybe they weren't, but to our eye, they were foolproof. So there wasn't a lot that went away. It was kind of, everything was kind of necessary, which was the nature of the project, being that, I mean, it's no secret, it was a low budget feature, and there was an urgency to it it's kind of built into the script.
Yeah, I was going to ask also, like, I know you shot during the pandemic. No? Oh, okay.
No, thank God we didn't.
Okay. Okay, no. Good. Okay, so scratch that.
We shot
it all through the pandemic.
Summer before.
It would have been a struggle for us to cope with the pandemic.
Yeah,
just in the way that we shot it, and you know, the things we had to do, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have a question from the audience, one of them. So Max asked, was the original version of the space similar to what you ended up with in the film, or was it originally a different vibe?
It was exactly, it was crazy that room, that area of that building in Hamilton where we shot was so much the layout of the area, with the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom and the closet, the storage closet, and the main room. That was, honest to God, that was in the script. Like, I changed some things. I built a couple walls, and I you know, closed off some areas, but it was really, it's a very boring answer. It's exactly as written. Remember when I saw that place, Hayley, I was like, we have to take this room. And we almost lost it at some point. And it was really lucky for us to get that space. It's crazy. It was like as written, wasn't it?
Structurally, for sure. Aesthetically, is it how you pictured it? Blue, like how did you come to those decisions? Because I know you had 2001 as a reference for a really long time.
Yeah, aesthetically, I mean, Elliot is Mr. Half Wall, like that's his thing. My little brother always he likes to do like half the color up the wall, you know. That's, I think it's in his bedroom, right?
It's in my bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, and then it was enough of a blank slate that we could make it look the way we wanted it to. It was really yucky when we first went in there. The only thing that remains is the bathroom in the movie. All those tiles are original, and we put the toilet in, and the windows have this really nice curved jamb, like the curve of the windows. It's a small detail, but that was original. But everything else we did ourselves. Like I built that scoreboard in my dad's garage. Like I hand painted all the names on the scoreboard and the Amharic, Ethiopian, you know, like everything. It was a blank slate. So we kind of got to do, me and my brother really just made it. It was a perfect canvas.
So yeah, I didn't know that you were working with your brother and that you were so involved in the production design. It makes sense, like watching your previous shorts. We see a lot of already some patterns that you know that are very recognizable. Like it's blue. You know, we have that, and Abe Saddam is yellow and blue.
Yellow and blue, you got it. Yeah.
Yes. And so yeah, so what is the work process between you two? How do you work together like that? Because
he's just extremely generous and is family, so he'll like, you know, go further than what the average human would in a situation like that. But no, Elliot worked in commercial and stuff, and we had worked on short films. We had worked on short films together. And he's, you know, we're both handy. Like our father is a carpenter, so I've worked as a carpenter, you know, since I was like 16 years old, I used to work for my father. And so I'm able to do the carpentry. And yeah, I mean, it was really, I'm not really sure what his plans are as far as production designer goes. He seems to have a lot of projects in his life on the go. I don't know, he was going to be a firefighter, but he's there's not enough fires or something. I don't know, but he like, it was almost like more of a, I don't want to sound corny, but it was almost more of just kind of like a barn building, like Julian said, as opposed to like a production design job. It was more like a all hands pitch in kind of job.
I have a question, Max. Leading from there, can you tell us a bit about the lighting design from Cabot? Because I watched the film today and I hadn't realized, being part of it, how essential the lighting was and the different states and the different ambience.
Well, I mean, one of the main things that determined the lighting was that on one side of the room, the window side of the room, we had indirect light until what, like 2 o'clock, Hayley? Something like that. Like just after lunch kind of thing. So we would shoot out that side in the morning and then turn around and shoot the other side in the afternoon. Because if you were shooting towards the windows in the afternoon, you'd get like these giant blasts of direct sunlight. So Cabot, on top of lighting the thing well, he was also just battling like a clock, you know, just like so we would shoot even one scene, like shoot this side in the morning and then shoot that side in the afternoon. But it worked out well because the room was kind of separated in a way because of the stage. Like a lot of your stuff, Julian, was obviously on the stage, so we could always shoot inside at a time of day that would be controlled. But then as far as like the lighting design, I always wanted to shoot like, I like movies that shoot in darkness all the time. Sometimes there's movies like, there's that Kelly Reichardt movie where they shoot that entire scene by campfire and there's only little embers burning and Meek's cut off, and it's really cool. But I wanted to shoot like a day. I want to see things. I want to see colors, and I wanted to shoot a daylight movie. I wanted to shoot a movie where the lights are on. So we really tried to keep it like colorful and bright until it becomes night. And then there was this night stuff that was decidedly night. And a lot of the lighting is, I mean, the DP Cabot it's probably a lot more complicated than I think, but it was a lot of it, I think it was determined by available light and then enhanced with, electric light. But a lot of the references for the movie were like, one of the big references for the movie lighting wise and production design was Fox and his friends, that Rainer Werner Fassbinder movie, which is, I don't know if that's Berlin, maybe it's Hamburg, but whatever. It's like a, the colors, like the daytime stuff is very colorful and it's not like hiding in shadows. It's not dramatic with the lighting. It's dramatic with the performance.
There's another, there's a clear reference film that you're citing at the very beginning, which is The Lord of the Flies, and more specifically the scene with the seashell, and which we see later on, with Zifosura. So yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Lord of the Flies. I mean, it's a little bit on the nose, but I love Lord of the Flies. Like it's the best book. It's the best movie. Like that. There was something else that we were going to shoot for that, what was on the TV, and it was just a little bit more oblique. And I thought, like, fuck it, let's just say what we want to say. Like, I was like, this movie's not subtle. I wasn't trying to make a subtle movie. Like, maybe the next one will be subtle. This movie's not subtle. So I was like, just like show, I mean, the whole conch shell thing was always something I was interested because of Lord of the Flies. Then I thought, well, this movie's kind of essentially a Lord of the Flies thing. It's like you put 6 people together in a room and they kill each other. It like in isolation, people revert to these, like, their horrible instinctual nature. Probably reveals what my vision of humanity is, but whatever. So it was just like, let's just put the thing there that we're beating around the bush and just like say it. And I think it's funny because like the shell, it sort of gives the shell some more context in the movie, where otherwise the shell, although it might work on its own, it would be a bit of a non sequitur. So, but the whole idea of the shell was that the shell is like, it's like millennia of history speaking to her. It's like the Zifosura is the horseshoe crab. It's like the oldest animal on the planet. And so it's like, it's all of the instincts of the past. It's like her animal self. It's everybody's id speaking to them when they're speaking to the shell. Like the voice of Zifosura is like your bad human instincts. Which is kind of, that's not what happens in Lord of the Flies, but it represents the same thing in Lord of the Flies, I think, anyways.
And it's a good cat name.
And it's a good pet. Yeah.
We have another question from Terry, who asks, besides the challenges shown in the movie, the 8 challenges, were there any other challenges that didn't make the cuts?
Challenges that, like in the rounds? Oh.
Yeah, did you write more? Or?
No. No, because it would have been impossible, because Julian always says round 8, round 7, round 6. So it was.
Although I get it wrong. You
do get it wrong. That's true.
Yeah.
But No, I worried about that when we were like before shooting, because I thought, fuck, if this round doesn't work, it's going to be impossible to cut it out of the movie. So no, there was just the rounds. Like in earlier drafts, there were other rounds, but by the production draft, it was I think there was a round. There was so many rounds in earlier drafts, they're not even worth describing. They're just like, no, but by the time we were shooting, that was the challenges that were on the script. Yeah.
Got it. I was wondering about a little bit about Bofill Pancreas, who is in an MLM or a pyramid scheme kind of thing, and I remembered you were citing Scientology and Ape Sodom with the Dianetics, and I don't know what's up with that. Is there something that you have an interest in the cults? And I guess
so. I don't know. I find that stuff just, it's so predatory. I mean, like, it's a weird thing. I have a weird relationship with MLMs, like multi-level marketing and Ponzi schemes, and because part of me, like the more cynical part of me, thinks that everything is kind of a multi-level marketing scheme, and like capitalism itself is a fucking multi-level marketing scheme. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but in a way, it's kind of like, well, what's the difference between selling somebody, protein powder that says they're gonna, gain muscle mass, and then selling them like, I don't know, skin cream that makes them look younger? Like it's all kind of bullshit, right? And I mean, I'm sure there's some very fine skin creams out there, but I like, essentially everything is kind of, and the most cynical part of me is it sometimes thinks like, well, like I really despise like the predatory nature of cults and multi-level marketing schemes and people that trick people into buying things and trick people into falling for ideologies that are just completely bankrupt. It kind of like, well, if you want to spend your money that way, then maybe you can do that, Like that's the really dark part. And with Bofill, I like that character because he's a pretty credulous person, and he got fooled by a scheme, but he's also kind of the only guy that's not a piece of shit in the movie. I mean, Maria's not a piece of shit. Maria's just on her own trip, but like he's really like, he's a kind man. Although he cuts off Manny's earlobe, but I mean, he's just a little bit dumb. But like, so I don't know. I think about that stuff a lot. That those kinds of schemes, and they make me angry, but I also just find them really interesting. They're their own stories. You know what I mean? Like it's very easy to introduce that, and people recognize it, and they know what it is, and it fills in a lot of the blanks. So it's a kind of device.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even like Julian's character, he introduces himself and saying that, it's no email flim-flam sweepstakes, and you already get that vibe. And he's probably part of a cult. I feel like, Julian, do you think your character was part of a cult? I think so.
It's hard to... Max and I, we talked at length about it. It's we have our own vocabulary for homunculus. The important thing is in a world full of such big characters and big desires, it's important also to have somebody that feeds them constantly, so that pares down any superfluous information that's not necessary. So even with the speech, so you can't play a voice from the past. You have to embody something. You have to embody a living, breathing person. But at the same time, you have to get rid of any extraneous stuff that's going to distract from the journey of the contestants. So it was a fun one for me in terms of figuring out how you become a sort of a mechanized instrument to take a script or a a situation forward, but also be present and alive and responsive at the same time. So it was fun. It was, and again, like I said, I think it was the kind of thing that actually could only be written by an actor, because it's all about what is performative and what isn't, and what do we rely on, and how do we resort to these kind of not stereotype, but conditioned ways of responding. So anyway, but I haven't answered your question, but I've talked around it.
But like the way we talked about Homunculus was, it is true. He was kind of like, in the most facile description, he's a little bit of a delivery system, right? Which is a tough role to play, because you don't want to just be an exposition person. Like, that's the worst role to play. But he had to be like a cipher for whatever the fuck was going on. But then the cipher was broken. There was something about that character that's like, it didn't really break until, actually, it was Julian's idea, which I thank him for. At some point, he had to like leave the stage and sort of, it wasn't like breaking the fourth wall, but like when he, I think it's like the round 7 or something, when he steps off the stage, and then it becomes more immersed with the characters, and then it became like that. At that point, the character kind of rose, like outside of the Berlin stuff, like that when the character is not just on stage and being a sort of chapter heading, and then becomes like involved in the game in the 7th round. That's when I think the character gets a little bit more like of a like, you realize it. I don't think he's part of a cult. I don't think he's like, I think that Homunculus is just, he doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just like feeling his way through this. I don't know what he'll do after or before. Like, I don't, it's almost like a fantasy character.
It's fun. One of the things we came up with was the idea of a puppet with strings cut off, in that it's not as simple as referring to him as a puppet or a mouthpiece, but he himself is broken and not quite functioning correctly. And that's kind of an interesting journey, because it gives you places to go that don't quite work. And so Homunculus is always working. It's not complacent. There's no complacency in him. He's not just delivering. He's working hard.
Yeah. He has some trouble.
Yeah. But as you say, once he gets onto the floor, he starts to insinuate himself and pick up things from other people.
Yeah.
We have another question that kind of linked to one of mine. I was thinking about dialogues. I absolutely love them. So I was wondering what the writing process was, and specifically with dialogues, and if you worked with the actors. And the question from Suzanne is that, were there any comedic moments or dialogues improvised by the actors?
Generally with this, I think we pretty much stuck to the script. Like, the dialogue was pretty specifically written. It's really, obviously it's a really talky movie. There's a lot of dialogue, and a lot of it is sort of intentionally verbose, and especially with the character of Andrew, and with Julian's character of Homunculus, it's got this, the cadence and the verbiage is weird. It's intentionally kind of off, like a lot of malapropisms and so it wasn't. I don't think there was a lot of improvisation. There was a couple scenes that sort of went into improvisation, and we may have kept moments, but I think it was pretty loyal to the dialogue written.
I would say that it felt improvisational because it was so well drilled, and that every day we drilled the scenes and went through them, and so we could go through them very quickly, like theater rehearsals.
Yeah.
And we weren't afraid of overlapping either. I don't know if we ended up overlapping a lot, but the way that you were shooting it, you encouraged us to get the rhythmic truth of a scene rather than worry about, his close up, her close up. We never were waiting for traditional coverage. It was always about the scene and the propulsion of the scene.
Yeah, and certainly if something came up where an actor had a better way of saying it, then that would happen. But a lot of it is, as I said earlier, like there was an urgency, and so there wasn't a lot of room for experimentation, because there was a lot of pages to cover, and even in a small setting like that, it can be very complicated. When you're blocking 6 people, that blocking takes up a lot of the time and energy. So once we got something, we generally stuck to it.
What's the most surprising that came out of the movie that you didn't expect, that just maybe happens organically, and that is something that stood out?
The most surprising thing that came that I didn't
you didn't maybe anticipate it.
That I'm alive right now. That I'm not like hanging from a fucking closet, like a rail in my closet. No, I'm not like things go in some small steps that I can't really, I don't know, maybe Hayley has, I don't know, or Julian, I don't know. What do you think?
Hayley?
Go, Julian, you go first.
All right. The only thing I would say, being geographically close to Max over the last couple of years, is the realization of how slow the evolution of post-production has been for this film, and how difficult that is with such urgency and such heat in creating the thing. I would say for you, Max, it's been very hard seeing the slow kind of evolution to being seen, and COVID has a big part.
A lot of it was COVID. That is, I guess it was like, you kind of figure a year after you shoot, you'll have a movie, but we were more about 2 years, but yeah.
But it doesn't feel it's lost its moment, or it's it's any less urgent. It actually, I've enjoyed revisiting it, and it feels very, very fresh.
No, and habanero orange SUVs are very popular in the United States right now. That's what the sales agents tell me. They're everywhere. Hayley, what were you going to say?
I think throughout the production process and post process, my biggest surprise is Max, honestly. Like I don't know who I thought you would be as a director, but it was really a cool experience to watch you direct this film as an actor with actors. Usually you have an experience where a director is in Village and barely interacts with their actors and sort of gets dropped in and dropped out. And Max, I can't really even begin to describe how sort of like up and down and in and out he was the entire experience of the film.
Yeah.
And like getting out of people's eye lines and genuinely really respectful of the craft, and like would kind of like clap his hands to raise energy and was so in it with these people. And I think that was a really invigorating experience for me as someone who works adjacent to creatives, to see how involved someone can actually be. So that was a great, very pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Julian.
I was just going to add to that, saying, yes, I agree. And for somebody who's a performer, allowing the other performers maximum freedom, but never giving line readings, but being more of a conductor. It was kind of cool seeing Max there, kind of maintaining energy, momentum, never sort of trying to be nitpicky with actors, but to open up doors all the time. So it's really good.
So I was going to talk a bit about the ending. which leaves big space to very open to interpretation. I guess so I was wondering what you guys are projecting. What do you think happens? So something that I noticed also is that it feels almost like Midnight Confession, and in the same way almost. And I was going to ask you, like, I want to know who knocks on that Midnight Confession. Who's that person?
But in Midnight Confession, who's knocking? It's like,
I think it's Julian. I think it's Humunculus.
Right. Yeah, in this one, the ending is like, I mean, I can tell you what I think the ending is, but I'm not saying this as a cop-out, because it's obviously intentionally ambiguous, like the very last frame of the movie. But what I always wanted to happen was I wanted I mean, should I say, does it matter if you say spoilers in this thing?
No, I mean, normally everyone who's watching us have seen the film. But...
Right. So I wanted everybody to die. I wanted everybody to be dead at the end of the movie. That's how the movie ends. That's the only way you can really end a movie, is all of the characters die. And so at the end of the movie, Suzette or Maria, she jumps out the window. That's how. But of course, the hawk hits the window, and this time, But the fact that you don't hear anything, like, I always wanted her to be like, well, that's the end of the movie. That's the end of the contest. I've reached my transcendence. Everybody else is dead. And now I've got to finish the story. Like, it's so obtuse, but that's really what happens in my mind. But of course, the ambiguity of what happens, I mean, a more spiritual person might think that she ascends to a higher plane or something. It doesn't really matter. I think it works on both levels. I mean, the fact that there's a hawk, like a callback to the earlier thing, I think is satisfying enough. But
yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the film that I have in mind, that's also like a no exit kind of ensemble, closed space kind of film. When I saw it's because I saw you, Julian, in it. It's Cube, and it has also this very like weird open ending. Like, she gets out of the cube, and does she ascend or transcend? And it's funny how it was linked together in my mind. What do you think, Julian, about this ending?
It's funny for my performance to be referenced to another movie. There you go, Max. That's you thought we were being anonymous. You were having these sort of like non-archetypes.
No, you're the exception. Yeah, you're the exception to the rule.
No, it's I must admit, I was, when I saw it, as I said earlier about the lights, things struck me that I hadn't noticed when I was within it. So, the removal makes you perceive things a little bit differently. And so when I watched it recently, I was waiting for her to go. I was surprised she stayed still. And I was waiting for Suzanne to make a specific move, or not even, but she actually remains. So it is very ambiguous. Like, there's no sense of her forward momentum out the window. But so I don't know. But I feel satisfied. I feel I don't want to know, actually. The hawk is enough, and I'm more concerned about does Kara die? Like, is she dying? I'm pretty sure she will. So the literal part of my brain is going, but I like that sort of dissonance is fine by me. I don't want to explain it. I don't want to explain the end.
Yeah, fair enough. Hayley?
To me, it's very clear what happens. but it's maybe just because I've read many iterations of the script where it was more literal from the get of what specifically happened. Like, oh my God, we shot alternative endings for the film from the get. Do you like this? I shot a movie in the Arctic, and there's something about the like, I don't know, weather or temperature. My glasses keep popping off my face ever since. Yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, it, to me, she dies. She jumps out the window, she dies. Either the hawk flies into the window and she jumps out, or she shoots the window and jumps out. And I really like that finality to it. And also it's tragic. It becomes a tragedy in that sense, that we have no good ending for all their efforts, just like the prize that they all fought for was futile to begin with. But I love the ambiguity of it in that it can be anything to anybody who watches it.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think unless you have some final words that you wanted to say, maybe you have like one final tiny question, is that if you have any kind of next project. I mean, I'm sure Max and Hayley, you know, already done STANLEYVILLE, and I don't know if you're already moving on to a next project. And Julian, if you want to talk about what's next for you too.
Julian?
I'm a working actor, so you know I'm in the rounds doing stuff. I have a couple of projects that I was fortunate to shoot during COVID, which will be coming out fairly soon, and just doing the cycle of auditions and work. I'm afraid I sound mysterious, but I can't go into too many details because people are very private about stuff like this.
Hey, hey, buddy. Hayley, what do you got going on?
I'm in a similar boat. Just, yeah,
You're going to Hungary!
Going to Hungary. We made lots of, you know, movies. Since this one, it was a long time ago, and I'm going to Hungary in like a week or something.
To shoot him?
To shoot a movie.
Yeah, no, me and Rob are writing another script. We're always writing, and I have acting jobs. I just shot this TV show that wrapped about a month ago that I'm saying, hey, like, don't go in there, it's on fire. And, you know, if you really pay attention, you might catch me. But that's it. Just looking toward the next thing, which is, you know, an equally weird but slightly more ambitious movie that will take place, and I promise, more than one fucking room.
Definitely looking forward to all of that. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Thank you for that wonderful movie. To all our audience who are still watching, if you've enjoyed STANLEYVILLE and if you want to recommend it to your friends, it's playing again in 2 days as an on-demand titles, but for 24 hours only. So don't miss out on that. I also wanted to plug that if you want to watch Max's short films, Ape Sodom and Midnight Confession, highly recommend it. They are both on Vimeo, correct?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. And
thank you,
hopefully
Celia.
see you around the festival circuit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.